At Petco, some of the fish you see will thrive in your tank. Others, they're ticking time bombs, fish that'll die in a week, grow into monsters, or wipe out everything else in your aquarium. And the worst part? You're never told which is which. Today, I'm breaking down exactly which fish you should buy from Petco or PetSmart, and which ones you should run away from like your life depends on it. Because honestly, your fish's life does. Look, before we dive in, let me be crystal clear about something. Almost every single fish that comes into these big chain stores has been through absolute hell. We're talking shipping stress, overcrowded tanks, temperature swings, and more diseases than a college dorm bathroom. I've seen ick, velvet, columnaris, parasites you can't even pronounce, you name it, it's probably swimming around in there. Does that mean you shouldn't buy fish from Petco? Not necessarily. It just means you need to know what you're doing. You need to quarantine, you need to inspect. And you absolutely need to know which species can handle the stress and which ones are already halfway to the great fishbowl in the sky. So let's start with the good news. Black neon tetras. If I had to pick one fish that's consistently decent quality at Petco, it's the black neon tetra. These little guys are hardy, peaceful, and they actually look good. They've got this sleek black stripe with a subtle neon glow underneath, way classier than their flashy cousins. Here's why I love them. They're not picky. They'll eat flakes, they don't need perfect water conditions, and they school beautifully. Get like 6 to 10 of them in a 20-gallon tank with some plants, and you've got yourself a legit aquarium that doesn't look like a kid's birthday party. And in my experience, they survive the Petco gauntlet better than most. I don't know if it's because they're hardier or just luckier, but I've bought these multiple times and had way fewer DOA situations than with other tetras. Harlequin rasboras. Next up, Harlequin rasboras. If black neons are the safe choice, Harlequins are the chef's kiss of beginner fish. They're small, orange, wedge-shaped, and ridiculously peaceful. You could put these guys in a tank with a grumpy betta and they'd probably just mind their business. They're also stupid easy to care for. They don't need a heater if your house stays above like 68 degrees. They'll eat anything. They don't get stressed easily. And they look way better in groups, so grab at least 6. I've recommended these to so many beginners, and I've never had someone come back and say, yeah, they all died. That's a win in this hobby. Corydoras catfish. Okay, this one comes with a small asterisk, but hear me out. Cory cats at Petco can be hit or miss depending on the species. The peppered cories and the bronze cories, usually solid. The albino ones, also pretty decent. But here's the thing. Cories are sensitive to poor water quality, and they get stressed super easily during shipping. So if you see them gasping at the surface, swimming erratically, or looking pale and washed out, skip them. But if they look active and healthy, they're one of the best clean-up crew members you can get. They're adorable, they stay small, they're peaceful, and they'll zoom around your tank like little underwater Roombas. Just make sure you get at least 3. They're social, and a lonely Cory is a sad Cory. Alright, so those are the fish I'd actually feel okay recommending. But now we need to talk about the dark side, because for every black neon tetra, there's a fish at Petco that's either going to ruin your tank, your wallet, or your soul. Let's get into it. Better fish in cups. Let's just rip the band-aid off. The better cups at Petco are an absolute crime against fish keeping. I don't care how convenient they are. I don't care that they're $5. It's wrong. These fish are sitting in their own filth, in freezing cold water, under fluorescent lights, for days or even weeks. They're stressed, they're sick, and half of them have fin rot before you even get them home. And yes, I know some people say, but I'm rescuing them. No, Karen, you're funding the system. Every time you buy one, they order another. Now, does that mean betters from Petco are always bad? Not exactly. If you find one in an actual tank with a filter and a heater, that's a different story. But those cup betters, You're rolling the dice. And most of the time, you lose. I've seen people buy these thinking they're getting a low-maintenance pet, and then the betta dies 3 days later. Or it lives, but it's got permanent damage and never looks right. It's heartbreaking. If you absolutely must buy a betta from Petco, pick the healthiest-looking one, quarantine it for at least 2 weeks, and be ready to treat for parasites and bacterial infections. Because trust me, it's coming. Oscars. Oh man, Oscars. If there's one fish that Petco sells to unsuspecting beginners that I absolutely despise, it's this one. They sell them as cute little 2-inch babies, and people buy them thinking, oh cool, a colourful fish for my 10-gallon tank. And then 6 months later, they've got a football-sized monster that's eating everything, rearranging the decorations and staring at them like it's plotting murder. Oscars get huge, like 12 to 14 inches huge. They're messy, they're aggressive, and they need at least a 75-gallon tank as adults, preferably bigger. But Petco employees don't tell you that. They just hand you a bag and say, good luck. I've seen so many people try to rehome these things on Craigslist after they realise what they've gotten into. And guess what? Nobody wants them. So they either end up in a cramped tank suffering, or worse, people flush them or dump them in local ponds. It's a mess. If you're an experienced aquarist with a massive tank and you know what you're doing, sure, get an Oscar. But if you're a beginner, stay far, far away. Common plecos. This one makes me irrationally angry. Petco sells common plecos as algae eaters for like $4, and they market them as the perfect clean-up crew for your tank. What they don't tell you is that these things grow to over a foot long and produce more waste than a family of goldfish. I've talked to so many people who bought a tiny pleco for their 20-gallon community tank, and a year later it's this massive log of a fish that's destroying plants, bulldozing decorations and pooping everywhere. They don't even eat that much algae once they get big, they just eat your money in the form of algae wafers. And just like Oscars, good luck rehoming them. Most people don't have tanks big enough, and most fish stores won't take them back. If you want an algae eater, get a bristlenose pleco. They stay small, they're way cuter, and they actually do the job without turning your tank into a disaster zone. Goldfish, for most people. Okay, this one's controversial, but hear me out. Goldfish at Petco aren't bad fish. They're actually pretty hardy and can live for decades if you care for them right. The problem is, nobody cares for them right. People see goldfish and think, oh, I'll just throw them in a bowl. No. Goldfish are messy, they get big, and they need serious filtration. A single fancy goldfish needs at least 20 gallons. A common goldfish? 75 gallons minimum, or better yet, a pond. But Petco markets them as beginner fish, and beginners buy them for tiny tanks, and then they wonder why their goldfish dies in 3 months. It's not the fish's fault, it's the system. If you've got the space and the setup, go for it. But if you're thinking about putting a goldfish in anything smaller than a 20-gallon tank, please don't. All right, now let's talk about the fish that are kind of in the middle. Not terrible, not great. These are the ones where your success really depends on your experience level and your tank setup. African cichlids. African cichlids are gorgeous. They've got insane colours, tons of personality, and they're active and fun to watch. Petco usually has a decent selection, and they're one of the few fish I'd say are actually worth considering from a big chain store. But here's the catch. They're aggressive. Not Oscar-level aggressive, but they will absolutely beat each other up if you don't know what you're doing. You need to overstock the tank to spread out aggression, you need tons of rocks for hiding spots, and you need hard alkaline water. If you're a beginner, this is not your fish. But if you've done your research and you're ready to commit to an African cichlid tank, they can be incredibly rewarding. Just don't mix them with community fish. I've seen people try to put cichlids in with tetras and rasboras, and it ends exactly how you'd expect. Violence. Glowfish. Oh boy, glowfish. These are the fish everyone loves to hate. They're genetically modified to glow under blue light, and they come in colours that look like a rave threw up in your aquarium. Are they ethical? That's a debate I'm not getting into today. But are they good fish? Actually, yeah, kind of. Glowfish are usually just modified versions of zebra danios, tetras or barbs, and those base species are pretty hardy. So if you can get past the fact that they look like highlighters, they're actually decent beginner fish. The danio glowfish are super active and fun. The tetra versions school nicely. I'm not a huge fan of the barb ones because, well, barbs are jerks, but overall, they're not the worst choice. That said, they're overpriced. You're paying extra for the gimmick. If you're on a budget, just get regular danias or tetras. Live bearers, loopies, mollies, platies. Live bearers are a mixed bag at Petco. On one hand, they're colourful, active, and easy to care for. On the other hand, they're inbred to hell and back. Guppies especially are prone to disease. I've bought guppies from Petco that looked perfect in the store and then died within a week from some mystery illness. It's frustrating. Mollies are a bit hardier, but they can be sensitive to water quality. And platies? They're probably the most reliable of the bunch. If you're going to get live bearers from Petco, inspect them carefully. Look for clamped fins, white spots, ragged tails, or any weird behaviour. And for the love of all things aquatic, quarantine them. Oh, and one more thing. They breed like rabbits. If you get males and females, be prepared for baby fish. Lots of baby fish. Like so many baby fish, you'll be begging people to take them off your hands. Tiger barbs. Tiger barbs are fast, flashy, and full of attitude. They're also little demons. These guys are fin nippers. If you've got anything with long flowing fins, betters, angelfish, fancy guppies, tiger barbs will shred them. They can't help it. It's just what they do. But here's the thing. If you keep them in a group of at least 6 and pair them with other fast, robust fish, they're actually pretty cool. They're active, they've got great colours, and they're hardy as nails. Petco usually has healthy tiger barbs. I've bought them multiple times without issue. Just make sure you know what you're getting into. They're not community fish. They're chaos agents. Let's take a minute to talk about something that's been bothering me since I started working in this hobby. The way Petco treats certain fish is borderline abuse. We already talked about better cups, but it goes deeper than that. The turnover rate at these stores is insane. Fish come in sick, they sit in overcrowded tanks with poor filtration, and a lot of them die before they ever get sold. And the employees? Most of them mean well, but they're not trained. I've heard Petco workers tell customers that goldfish can live in bowls, that betters don't need heaters, and that common plecos stay small. It's not their fault. They're just repeating what they've been told. But the result is the same. People buy fish they can't care for. Those fish suffer, and the cycle continues. I'm not saying don't shop at Petco. I'm saying be smart. Do your own research. Don't trust the care sheets. And please, for the love of God, quarantine everything. Now let's talk about the fish that are straight up dangerous to buy from Petco. Not because they're aggressive, but because they're almost guaranteed to be sick. Saltwater fish. If you've ever walked past the saltwater section at Petco, you've probably seen some stunning fish. Maybe a clownfish, a damsel, or even a tang if they're feeling fancy. Do not buy them. Saltwater fish are exponentially more sensitive than freshwater fish. They don't handle shipping well, they're prone to diseases like ick and velvet, and they need pristine water conditions to survive. Petco's saltwater tanks are not pristine. I've seen tanks with algae everywhere, dead fish floating, and equipment that clearly hasn't been maintained in weeks. Even if the fish looks healthy, it's probably not. Marine ick can be invisible for days, and by the time you see it, it's too late. If you want saltwater fish, Buy them from a dedicated aquarium store with proper quarantine systems. It'll cost more, but you'll actually have a chance of keeping them alive. Fancy goldfish. I know I already mentioned goldfish, but fancy goldfish deserve their own call-out. These are the ones with the bulging eyes, the double tails, the weird head growths. You know the ones. They're adorable. They're also incredibly fragile. Petco's fancy goldfish are often inbred and prone to swim bladder issues, infections, and genetic problems. I've seen them sold with bent spines, missing fins, and cloudy eyes. And because they're fancy, people assume they're delicate and keep them in tiny tanks, which makes everything worse. If you're going to get a fancy goldfish, get it from a breeder or a specialty store, and give it the space and care it actually needs. All right, so you've made it this far. You know what to avoid, you know what's safe, and you know what's risky. Now let's talk strategy. Inspect before you buy. Never, ever buy a fish without looking at it closely. Check for white spots, torn or ragged fins, clamped fins are sign of stress or illness, cloudy eyes, lethargy or erratic swimming, visible wounds or redness. If the fish looks even slightly off, don't buy it. And definitely don't buy anything from a tank that has dead fish in it. Quarantine everything. I can't stress this enough. Every single fish you buy from Petco should go into a quarantine tank for at least 2 weeks. Watch for signs of disease, treat preemptively if needed, and only add them to your main tank once you're sure they're healthy. I know it's a pain. I know it's extra work. But it's the difference between losing one fish and losing your entire tank. Ask questions, but verify the answers. Petco employees can be helpful, but they're not always right. If they tell you something that sounds fishy, look it up. Check online forums, watch YouTube videos, read care guides. Your fish's life is in your hands, not theirs. Look, I'm not here to trash Petco completely. I've bought plenty of fish from them that turned out great. But I also know the risks, and I want you to know them too. The truth is, you can find good fish at big chain stores. You just need to be smart, patient, and willing to do the work. Inspect every fish. Quarantine everything. Research obsessively. And never, ever trust the care tags. If you do that, you'll avoid the disasters and end up with a thriving tank full of healthy, happy fish. Now I want to hear from you. What's the best fish you've ever bought from Petco? What's the worst? Drop your stories in the comments. I love hearing about other people's wins and horror stories. And if this video helped you avoid a major mistake, hit that subscribe button. I've got tons more honest fish keeping content coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.